Hello Americans, welcome to our channel. This video is made by free videos from Storyblocks, and these images in video we use just for explanation and it's free use also.
Funerals can be unsettling for children, and Adam was no exception. Yet, his reaction upon seeing the casket was far from what anyone anticipated. His innocent voice echoed through the room, "Daddy is still alive." It was a sentence that sent shivers down everyone's spine, but no one dared to believe it. However, a curious police officer decided to investigate the claim, and what he found out was truly mind-blowing. At Dad's funeral, little kid says, "Daddy is still alive." Then police discover something. The police officer in question was Officer Trent, an old friend of Adam's father. He and Adam's father had been friends since college and even stayed in touch after their lives parted ways. What Adam said made the hairs on his back stand up straight, but it also rang an alarm bell inside his mind. The death of Adam's father was a curious case. You see, Joseph, the deceased, didn't die of natural causes. In fact, almost nobody actually knew why or how he died. His wife, Rosalie, was the only one who had spoken to the coroner, but she remained tight-lipped. At the funeral, the casket was closed, and even Joseph's mother was told she wouldn't be able to see her son one last time. It was all a bit suspicious, softly said, so after the funeral, Officer Trent arranged a court order to be able to look into Joseph's death certificate. When he arrived at the coroner's office, the order in his hand, he saw an uneasy look on the coroner's face. "This looks really bad, but I can't find the death certificate," the coroner awkwardly said. Officer Trent couldn't believe what he was hearing, but he couldn't do much about it either. So, he headed over to Rosalie's home to talk to Adam. He had to know why the little boy had said something so bold. Arriving at Rosalie's house, she was surprised to see Officer Trent at her door, which was understandable because who likes to find an officer on their doorstep? "May I speak with Adam?" Officer Trent kindly asked, noticing Adam standing behind his mother. Rosalie was a bit hesitant, so Officer Trent tried to make the situation lighter. "It's nothing big, just a question for the brave boy," he said as he made eye contact with Adam. Finally, the boy stepped forward, wanting to help the officer. Rosalie reluctantly stepped aside to let her son through while Officer Trent crouched down to be on the boy's level. "Just one question, though," Rosalie whispered with determined eyes. Officer Trent nodded and turned his attention back to Adam. "Adam, why did you say that your daddy is still alive the other day?" Adam's eyes darted to the ground as he shifted from one leg to the other. He was nervous. Officer Trent patiently waited for the boy's response. As kids sometimes do, he made a few thinking sounds, then suddenly looked Officer Trent right in the eyes. "I saw him," Adam finally answered. "Where did you s?" Officer Trent wanted to ask, but Rosalie pulled her son back inside the house. "That's enough for today," she said, but something about her had changed. She seemed surprised and worried about her son's answer. Officer Trent had dealt with cases that involved kids before, so he knew this was not the time to push for a longer conversation. Instead, he gave Rosalie his card and told her to call if she or Adam thought of anything else that could be important for him to know about. As he walked up to his car, he looked behind him, but the front door of the house was already closed. Something told him there was more to this story, but it was difficult that the only witness he had was a child. Adam's words echoed inside Trent's mind as he drove home, wondering what Adam could have meant by stating that he had seen his father. That night, Officer Trent sat at his dining room table, staring at his laptop in front of him. He had no idea what to do next. The death certificate was nowhere to be found, which made the coroner a suspect. But at the same time, a suspect for what? Rosalie had been strict about no one looking inside the casket, so Trent actually had no idea if Joseph was in there or not. Frustrated and a little disappointed in himself, Officer Trent closed his laptop and went to bed. If he wanted to look inside the casket, he would need a warrant. And he was almost 100% sure the judge would never give out a warrant because of something a little boy said. He needed more proof, a lot more proof. The morning was crisp as Officer Trent parked his cruiser outside Rosalie's quaint, ivy-covered house. Stepping out, he adjusted his badge, his face set with determination. Today was about unearthing truths buried too long. He walked up the path, rehearsing his questions, his hand hesitating only slightly before ringing the bell. As he waited, he scanned the windows, pondering the secrets they might hold behind their cheerful curtains. When Rosalie opened the door, her expression was a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Officer Trent, now's really not a good time," she said, her hand poised as if ready to slam the door shut. Trent met her gaze steadily, his voice calm but insistent. "Rosalie, I understand, but it's imperative we talk about Joseph's case. There's a lot we need to discuss." Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, then, slowly, she stepped back, allowing him entry. Once inside, Trent didn't waste time. "Rosalie, the death certificate is missing," he stated plainly, watching her reaction closely. No shock crossed her face, only a resigned nod. "I'm not surprised," she responded, her voice tinged with weariness. "Nothing's been right since Joseph passed." Her lack of surprise piqued Trent's curiosity further, suggesting she might know more than she had initially let on. "Rosalie, about Adam, he mentioned seeing his dad. That's unusual for a child to say without reason." Trent pressed, hoping to break through her guarded demeanor. She sighed, a flicker of anguish crossing her features. "Adam has a vivid imagination," she started hesitantly, "but sometimes I wonder if there's more to his stories." Trent noted the flicker of doubt in her voice, realizing there was much more beneath the surface. Trent sensed her internal conflict, but saw her resolve beginning to waver. "I need to understand what he meant." Trent continued, his tone gentle yet firm. Rosalie looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and relief. "Okay," she finally whispered, stepping aside further. "Let's talk." As Trent crossed the threshold, the gravity of the conversation that lay ahead seemed to hang in the air, heavy with potential revelations. In the dim light of the living room, Rosalie's voice was barely above a whisper. "Joseph died during an intimate moment. It's why I've been so reluctant." Her cheeks flushed with a mix of sorrow and embarrassment. Trent nodded slowly, understanding her need for privacy yet also seeing the complexity it added to the investigation. This revelation explained her guarded demeanor and the closed casket at the funeral. Before Trent could ask another question about the missing death certificate, a sharp knock at the door sliced through their conversation. Rosalie tensed, her eyes darting towards the sound. "I wasn't expecting anyone," she murmured as she stood to answer it. Trent waited, his mind racing with possibilities. Who could be interrupting at such a critical moment? As Rosalie opened the door, Adam burst in, his face alight with an urgent need to speak. "Mom, I need to talk to Officer Trent," he exclaimed, his small frame barely containing his excitement. Trent turned to him, signaling him to slow down. "What is it, Adam?" he asked, sensing the importance of what the boy was about to reveal. "I saw him, officer. I really did." Adam's voice was insistent, his eyes wide with sincerity. "Where, Adam? Can you tell me where you saw your dad?" Trent asked, his notebook ready. Adam paced a little, his fingers twitching. "It was by the old playground near our house," he finally said. Trent scribbled down the detail, his curiosity deepening. As Adam spoke, Trent took detailed notes, his interest in the boy's account growing with every word. He was just there, like always. Adam continued, his voice a mix of confusion and conviction. Trent noted the specific location, considering the implications. The playground was close to their home. Could Joseph have been there recently, or was Adam's imagination more vivid than they realized? Adam fidgeted in his seat, glancing up at Officer Trent with apprehensive eyes. "I saw him at the mall," he whispered, "the day before the funeral." Trent leaned in, his interest piqued. "Are you sure, Adam?" The boy nodded, biting his lip. "Yes, he was there. I saw him." Trent's mind raced, piecing together what this could mean. Was Joseph really at the mall, or was this a child's hopeful imagining? Resolved, Trent stood up, buttoning his coat. "I'm going to check this out, Adam. Can you tell me anything else about that day?" Adam shook his head, that was all he remembered. Trent nodded, making a mental note to visit the mall first thing tomorrow. The possibility of Joseph being seen alive warranted a thorough investigation, regardless of how slim the chances might seem. The next day, Trent walked through the bustling mall, scanning the crowds. That's when he saw him, a man from behind, eerily similar to Joseph. The same build, the same gait. Trent's pulse quickened as he followed at a distance, trying to get a better look without drawing attention. Could it really be him? Or was it just a striking resemblance? Trent kept his distance, weaving through shoppers with his eyes fixed on the man. He noted every detail, how the man paused at a bookstore, then at a coffee shop, neither place seeming to hold his interest for long. Trent's curiosity mounted with each stop. Why these places? What was he looking for? Or who was he avoiding? As the man left the mall, Trent followed discreetly. The daylight glinted off his dark hair as he moved with a purpose Trent couldn't yet decipher. Where was this man headed? Trent's instincts told him there was more to this story, and he needed to see it through. This wasn't just about verifying a child's sighting anymore, it was about uncovering the truth hiding in plain sight. Trent watched as the man entered a lingerie store, an odd choice that raised his eyebrows. It was a stark contrast to Joseph's usual, understated style, Joseph, who preferred bookstores and quiet cafes. This deviation from the norm piqued Trent's curiosity further. What was this man's connection to Joseph, if any at all? The discrepancy in behavior patterns was enough to keep Trent's attention locked on the mysterious figure. Leaving the mall behind, the man walked briskly through the parking lot, unaware of the eyes tracking his every move. Trent followed discreetly, keeping a safe distance. He noticed the man checking his watch frequently, a sign of either nervousness or being late. As they moved farther from the commercial bustle, the surroundings grew quieter, the stakes higher. Trent's instincts were on high alert, something was unfolding, and he was at the heart of it. The chase led them to a residential area on the other side of town, where the man finally stopped in front of a modest house. The home was well kept, with a small garden that seemed lovingly tended. As the man entered the gate, Trent parked his car a short distance away, his mind racing. Was this his residence, a friend's, or something more clandestine? From his car, Trent observed the house intently, jotting down everything from the house number to the color of the curtains. He noted the time the man entered and any other small details that might later prove crucial. His notebook was filling up, each note a potential lead or a dead end. The quiet of the neighborhood contrasted sharply with the storm of thoughts in Trent's head. Convinced of the significance of this man's actions, Trent knew it was time to escalate his investigation. He planned his next steps carefully, considering the need for a search warrant and backup. This was no longer just a follow-up on a child's claim, but a potentially crucial lead in the mystery surrounding Joseph's disappearance. As the sun began to set, Trent prepared himself for what might come next, his resolve as firm as ever. Officer Trent remained in his car, camera in hand, as the man walked up to the front door of the house. He snapped a series of photos, capturing the man's entry with clear, deliberate shots. Each photo clicked with a sense of purpose. Trent knew this could be the key evidence needed if this man truly had any connection to Joseph. The camera's lens could see what he could not, details that might otherwise be missed. Peering through his car window, Trent continued to document the man's actions inside his home. The angle allowed him to capture the man moving through the rooms, his silhouette passing in and out of Trent's view. The quiet hum of the car mixed with the soft shutter sounds of the camera, creating a rhythm to Trent's meticulous work. Each photo added another piece to the puzzle he was desperately trying to solve. With a camera full of evidence and a mind racing with possibilities, Trent drove to the police station. He felt the weight of the photographs in his bag. They could be the leverage he needed. Pulling into the parking lot, he rehearsed his request for an exhumation warrant. The images alone might not be enough, but combined with Adam's statements and the suspicious activities, they were a compelling start. Inside the station, Trent spread the photographs out before the judge, each one a silent testimony to his claims. Your Honor, these pictures, coupled with the witness account and the suspicious circumstances surrounding Joseph's death, suggest that we must dig deeper, quite literally. He pointed to the photos methodically, his voice steady but urgent, driving home the necessity of reopening Joseph's grave to reveal the truth. The judge studied the photographs and Trent's earnest face. After a moment of consideration, he nodded slowly, signing the warrant. "Your evidence is compelling, Officer Trent. Proceed with the exhumation." Relief washed over Trent as he accepted the document. This was the breakthrough he needed. Armed with the judge's approval, he was now one step closer to unraveling the mystery of Joseph's death and what might lie beneath the surface at the cemetery. Officer Trent arrived at the cemetery, warrant in hand, accompanied by a team equipped with an excavator. The morning air was brisk, the solemn rows of tombstones casting long shadows across the dewy grass. The excavator's presence, a stark contrast to the usual peace of the cemetery, signified the gravity of the task ahead. Trent reviewed the plan with his team, ready to uncover the truth that lay beneath the cold ground. As the team set up, Rosalie appeared, her face etched with distress. "You can't do this," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "This is sacred ground. You're disturbing his peace." Trent was taken aback by her sudden presence and the intensity of her protest. He had anticipated some pushback, but not Rosalie's fervent opposition at the graveside, her hands clasped as if in prayer, her eyes filled with tears. Everything was disclosed at the time of death. "There's no need for this spectacle," Rosalie argued vehemently, her hands gesturing towards the gathered crowd and machinery. Trent, maintaining his composure, tried to reason with her. "Rosalie, there are unanswered questions that we need to resolve." He explained, but she was unyielding, insisting that the cause of death had been clear and no further intrusion was necessary. In an attempt to persuade her, Trent retrieved the photographs from his car and showed them to Rosalie. The images of the man from the mall clearly visible. "Look at these, Rosalie. Doesn't he look like Joseph?" he asked, his tone both gentle and insistent. Rosalie took the photographs, her hands shaking as she studied them. The color drained from her face as the resemblance struck her, her initial resolve wavering under the weight of new suspicions. Despite her protests, Rosalie's curiosity was piqued. "These photos, where did you take them? Who is this man?" she demanded, holding the images up to Trent with a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. Officer Trent hesitated, knowing the delicate balance he had to maintain. "Rosalie, it's part of an ongoing investigation," he began, trying to gauge how much he could share without compromising his surveillance efforts. Officer Trent chose his words carefully. "I understand your concern, but I must respect the privacy of the investigation at this stage," he explained. Rosalie's eyes narrowed, frustration evident on her face. Trent continued, "It's crucial we proceed carefully to ensure everyone's rights are preserved." His tone was firm yet empathetic, acknowledging her distress but holding firm to his duty. Rosalie, still clutching the photographs, took a deep breath. "Before you disturb his resting place, why not confront this man first? See what he has to say?" Her suggestion was not without merit, and it reflected a reasonable approach to the escalating situation. Trent considered this, aware that her proposal might indeed be a prudent next step before proceeding with the exhumation. "All right, Rosalie. I'll visit him again," Trent conceded, seeing the logic in her request. It was a reasonable compromise, one that would allow him to gather more direct evidence while respecting the sanctity of the grave for the moment. "We'll talk to him before taking any further action," he reassured her, hoping this approach would yield the answers they needed without further conflict. With the agreement in place, Trent left the cemetery, his mind set on his next move. He needed to speak with the man from the photographs before proceeding with any disturbance of the grave. As he drove towards the man's residence, his resolve hardened. This conversation would be crucial. Trent was prepared to press for answers that could unravel the mysteries surrounding Joseph's death once and for all. Officer Trent arrived at the house, a sense of determination filling him as he approached the front door. He knocked firmly, his other hand resting on his badge, visible for anyone answering to see. The neighborhood was quiet, the sound of his knocking almost echoing down the street. He adjusted his stance, preparing for any reaction as the door began to creak open. The door swung open to reveal a man, Alex, with a puzzled look on his face. "Can I help you?" Alex asked, eyeing the badge but not recognizing Trent. His expression was cautious, guarded. Trent introduced himself formally, keeping his tone professional but friendly. "I'm Officer Trent from the local police department. May I have a moment of your time?" Inside, Trent wasted no time. "Are you Joseph?" he asked straightforwardly, watching Alex's reactions closely. Alex's confusion deepened, wrinkles forming on his brow. "Joseph? I don't know anyone by that name," he replied, his tone a mixture of confusion and annoyance. Trent observed him intently, trying to discern if this was an act or genuine ignorance. Skeptical of Alex's response, Trent decided to escalate the situation. "I need you to come with me to the police station to clear up some things," Trent stated, his voice firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Alex looked taken aback, his body stiffening. "On what grounds?" he challenged, but Trent was already pulling out the necessary paperwork, his face set with resolve. Alex's resistance grew as he realized Trent was serious. "I haven't done anything wrong," Alex protested as Trent calmly explained he would be detained for further questioning. When Alex attempted to retreat into the house, Trent acted swiftly, handcuffing him with practiced ease. "I'm sorry, but we need to sort this out," Trent said, guiding a handcuffed Alex to the police car, prepared for the next phase of his investigation. In the stark interrogation room at the station, Alex sat across from Officer Trent, his face a mask of confusion. "I don't understand why I'm here," he stated firmly, maintaining his identity with conviction. As Trent laid out the photographs of Joseph, Alex looked at each one, shaking his head. "I've never seen this man before," he insisted, clearly puzzled by the accusations and the uncanny resemblance in the photos. Officer Trent spread out the photographs of Joseph across the table, pointing to each one as he looked for any sign of recognition in Alex's eyes. "Are you sure you don't know this man?" Trent asked, his voice tinged with frustration. Alex examined the images with a furrowed brow but remained adamant. "I told you, I have no idea who this is," he repeated, his denial consistent and firm. With the conversation at a deadlock, Trent leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Okay, let's try a different approach," he proposed. "How about a DNA test? That should clarify things once and for all." Alex looked worried but nodded slowly, understanding that this might be the only way to clear his name and end the baffling situation. Just as Trent was about to further discuss the DNA test, the door burst open and Rosalie rushed in, her eyes red from crying. Without hesitation, she collapsed into Alex's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Alex, taken by surprise, awkwardly wrapped his arms around her, his eyes wide with shock. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" he whispered to her, his voice filled with genuine confusion and concern. Alex's bewildered expression as he comforted Rosalie only deepened the mystery. He gently patted her back, clearly unsure of how to react to her emotional breakdown. "Who are you?" he asked softly, looking to Trent for explanations. Rosalie, still clinging to him, was too overcome to answer. Trent observed the scene, his mind racing with questions. This unexpected emotional display added another layer of complexity to the unfolding drama. The DNA results were unequivocal. Alex was not Joseph but his twin, separated at birth and unknown to each other. Officer Trent presented the findings in the quiet of the station's conference room, the papers rustling softly as he laid them out. Alex's face went pale, his eyes wide in disbelief. He had lived his whole life believing he was an only child. The reality of having a twin was overwhelming and surreal. As the implications of the DNA results sank in, Rosalie suddenly gasped, her memory jogged by the revelation. Joseph was adopted. "I completely forgot," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. "His parents mentioned they thought there might have been a sibling." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the newfound possibility that the brothers had been separated as infants, each leading vastly different lives. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications of Rosalie's recollection. Alex leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. A twin brother, and he was right here, living a separate life, he whispered, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and sadness. The idea that he had a family, that Joseph had been nearby all along, was a lot to take in. It reshaped his understanding of his own identity. Officer Trent took diligent notes on the new developments. The confirmation of the twin relationship added a significant piece to the puzzle of Joseph's mysterious life and death. He documented each detail, aware that this connection between Alex and Joseph would partly close the case, but also open new avenues for understanding the complexities surrounding Joseph's disappearance and the events leading to his death. With the twin mystery resolved, everyone's perception of the events leading up to Joseph's funeral began to shift. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, forming a clearer picture of two lives inadvertently intertwined yet distinctly separate. Rosalie, Alex, and even Trent felt the weight of this discovery, realizing how deeply the secrets of the past had affected their present. This revelation not only reshaped their understanding but also hinted at the closure that might finally be within reach. With the twin mystery finally resolved, the decision was made to leave Joseph's grave undisturbed. This resolution brought a solemn but respectful peace to those involved, particularly Rosalie, who felt that the serenity of Joseph's final resting place should remain intact. The cemetery, with its whispering leaves and somber stones, continued to be a place of reflection and remembrance, untouched by the recent turmoil. In the weeks that followed, Rosalie and Alex maintained regular contact, exploring the strange new connection that had thrust them into each other's lives. Their conversations, initially awkward and hesitant, gradually became more fluid and open. They shared stories of Joseph, Rosalie providing the history and memories, while Alex absorbed every detail, eager to connect with the brother he never knew he had. The day Alex met his nephew Adam was filled with cautious anticipation. Adam, curious yet shy, showed Alex his collection of model airplanes, and it wasn't long before they found common ground. Alex's knowledge of aircraft mechanics, from his years in engineering, fascinated Adam, bridging the gap between them. Their shared interests laid the foundation for a budding relationship, turning initial confusion into a genuine family connection. As months passed, Alex became a regular fixture in Rosalie and Adam's lives. The community watched, sometimes skeptical but mostly supportive, as Alex integrated into the family with surprising ease. Holiday meals, school events, and casual Saturdays were shared, with Alex often seen laughing with Adam in the backyard or helping Rosalie with household chores. Their bond, forged from unexpected circumstances, grew strong and resilient. The case officially closed, leaving behind a legacy of a newfound family bond that left the local community in awe. Officer Trent, who had watched the developments from a professional distance, felt a rare satisfaction in seeing how the case unfolded into a positive resolution. The story of Joseph, Alex, and their reunion rippled through conversations, a reminder of the unpredictable and intertwined paths of life. The mystery was solved, not with more loss, but with the gain of family.